Welcome to the Ivey Career Management Podcast. Today we're stepping out of the studio to bring you stories and strategies from students, special guests, and the career management team. While we find a quiet space, make yourself comfortable and let's get started.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. I'm your guest host, Vanessa, and I'm so excited you're joining us for this special conversation all about settling into Ivey. Whether you're gearing up for Ivey, feeling a little nervous, or just curious about what life at Ivey actually looks like beyond the classroom, this episode is for you. Joining me today are two incredible Ivey students who've been through it all and are here to share what they've learned along the way. Let's have you both introduce yourselves.
For sure. Thanks, Vanessa. I'm Sophie. I just completed my first year at Ivey, and my previous 2 years at Western, I was studying business in the BMOS program, and I'm from Toronto. So that's just a little bit about me.
Awesome. Welcome, Sophie.
Thanks, Vanessa. I'm super excited to be here today. My name's Adi. I just finished my first year as well at Ivy. I'm going into HBA2. My first 2 years I did psychology and anthropology, so a little bit different. But yeah, I'm super excited to be here. I'm currently working at Scotia on their real estate lending team, and I'm super excited for HBA2.
Amazing. Thanks, Adi. All right, let's dive a little bit deep into our first question here. And what I really want to know is what were you most nervous or excited about before starting at Ivey? And maybe, Adi, we'll start with you.
For sure. I think honestly, it's just walking into the classroom with like 78 people you don't really know. I think that, that first day was like super nerve-wracking. I know like the gala kind of helped. It was cool to like meet so many different people. But at the end of the day, like you really don't know anyone, and walking into that classroom is definitely like nerve-wracking. And honestly, just saying your first contribution is very like hard to do. So I would definitely say that was like, one of the hardest parts of just like entering, Ivy. But I think over the months or like like I think the first week, honestly, there's so many like activities that you do and like
Mm,
moments like with your peers where you really bond, right? So I think that first week, really take advantage of it. O week was so super special, so that's like something that's super important to like think about. Just talk to everyone. Everyone's like more than willing to talk to each other,
yeah.
because we're all trying to make friends at the end of the day. But definitely like a nerve-wracking moment in the beginning, but it was awesome.
Yeah, I was just going to agree with the statement of just everyone's nervous. If you don't think
Mm.
someone's nervous, they're probably just pretending better than you are. Um, but I think it was hard to separate nerves from excitement. So I think they kind of just blended together a lot within
Hmm.
that first week. And kind of what Addie was saying, I think everyone's nervous for the contribution. That was definitely the thing I was most nervous for, just it being such a significant part of your grade. And
Yeah.
that's such like a present thing within Ivy is, continuous learning and contribution based learning. So I think just knowing the significance of that in the program and just wanting to do well at that was a big point of nerves.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine what you both mentioned is, you're meeting 70 new students that are potentially within your section. There's this gala that's happening, there's the contribution piece. And so you mentioned it's a nice balance. Those emotions of excitement and nerves kind of blend in together, which is part of the experience. And I think something that you highlighted as well, Sophie, is everyone is in the same boat. Everyone is feeling the exact same thing. And so channeling into that energy is probably just another way to, start those conversations with those people that you're meeting. And we'll get into some of those pieces on your strategies to building your community a little later on, but thanks for sharing that.
Yeah,
And
of course.
so something that, there's a lot that's happening at Ivy, especially within those first 2 weeks, but then you're also balancing academics, your social, extracurricular activities, and then on top of that, recruitment and so much more, right? And so one of the common themes that we hear is how do how can I balance everything? What do I prioritize? And so I'd like to hear a little bit of your experience of having been through your first year at Ivy. What's one strategy or mindset that really helped you avoid burnout?
I think just to preface, like there's no such thing as like being like perfect and like finding the right balance. I think it's really different for everyone. And
Mm.
I think, finding that like perfect, routine is something that you're
Mm.
definitely gonna have to like experiment a little bit on like in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But if I really had to like emphasize like how to really find that balance, I would say I think the easiest way to really do it is kind of like ask yourself like what really matters to me. You know, what do I want to like gain out of like my first year at Ivy? Do I really want to prioritize like my social life? You know, do I want
Mm-hmm.
to prioritize academics? Do I want to prioritize recruiting? And I think that's honestly like a good start. And I think honestly, just I know it's gonna be hard, but like try to schedule it, you know? Try to be like, hey, I'm like it's pretty like obvious in terms of like your classes. It's probably gonna be like from 8 to 1. So what am I
Right.
gonna do like before class or what am I gonna do like after class to really like set myself up for success? And I
Mm-hmm.
think one thing that you should really like kind of focus on is definitely, you know, like your school super important, stuff like that. But I definitely think that the social aspect and recruiting is really important, right? So like, you know, meet as many people as you can and like these are connections for life. So like don't neglect that for sure. I would really try to emphasize like the social part. And
Yeah.
then of course, you know, like recruiting is really important. That is your future. That's what you're gonna do like out of Ivy. So like don't neglect that. But honestly, like Google Calendar is a great tool. Try to like, you know, log stuff in that. And I think it'll really help with like finding that balance for sure.
Yeah, that's a great point. I definitely second the Google Calendar part. I think that was very useful, as well as I think personally, I think I just treated it sort of like a 9 to 5 job. I think
Mm-hmm.
take advantage of the fact that, you have to be at class at 8 a.m. and you end
Mm-hmm.
at 1 p.m. Whereas some of my friends would have night classes. We didn't have
Mm-hmm.
that. So I think just reminding yourself, when your 1 o'clock class is done, that's kind of the time, depending if you're a night owl, I'm not. So that would be my time to, prep the next day's cases and study and do anything recruitment based. So I think just really utilizing your afternoons and if you have to before class as well, just to not get flustered, all at once on the weekend or something like that. I found with that strategy, my weekends were pretty much free from work. So that was nice.
Okay. Yeah. And so I'm hearing this, leveraging the tools that you have, like a Google Calendar, for example, as a way to keep yourself organized. And then I also hearing a lot of prioritization, treat it like a 9 to 5 and really kind of take advantage of the full 24 hours within the day. And so I'm curious to hear you expand a little bit more in terms of how did you plan your days? Like, what did that actually look like? Should a student want to mirror or take some tips from you both?
Yeah, I think that's really important is planning for your days. I
Hmm.
personally would like pack my meals on the weekend, make them on the weekend because if I'm hungry, I'll just go home and probably lie in bed. So that was that was a really key point. Just in order to stay at the Ivy building, I had a meal right after class.
Right.
Um, Whereas like some friends from the section, we would just stick around after class, have lunch, and then do work together. So I think that was a good way to, prioritize and make sure that you're giving yourself the tools to know what you have to do,
Hmm.
as well as making it fun and doing it with friends as well.
Yeah. Thanks. Anything else to add, Addie?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think Sophie's like better on like the food thing because I do not like meal prep a lot on Sundays. Ivy Calf is really good, but you know, be aware you are gonna spend a lot.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, honestly, I think the best thing in terms of like preparing yourself is like look at I know it's really annoying, but like just look at the syllabus. I think it really helps, and I think it's a super underrated tip is just like put the key dates down in your calendar and be
Mm.
like, hey, like you know my midterm's gonna be like this date or like my project's gonna be this date. I want to you know like get all my work done or like top because like a lot of like Ivy projects are with like your peers, so get them done in advance, you know? Like be like the catalyst and just be like, hey, let's like you know, meet for this date and let's talk about it and just take initiative. Honestly, I think that's really like underrated in Ivy because everyone's like so kind and so nice and like, you know, we're just like very like relaxed sometimes, but like, you know, it's good to take the initiative and be like, hey, does this date like work for everyone? And just like put them in your calendar, you know, look at the syllabus, reach out to people. And I think, of course, like after class, you know, like try and get your cases done because, like, you know, I also like work, you know, better during the day compared to like the night. So I think
Mm.
honestly, it stays more fresh in my brain too because I understand like what I'm learning, right? So yeah, try to get the cases done if you can, like after class. I think that's a great strategy. Like Sophie mentioned as well, like if you have like a good group, you know, cases are like much more fun with like people beside you because you can ask them questions.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think those are like two great strategies.
Yeah, it sounds like it's like, so doing your homework or the cases right after class with your friends just makes it more engaging, interactive, and your learning could be so much more meaningful because you're throwing out some questions and ideas, allowing you to better understand, the case itself, right? And then you're getting it done earlier versus later on in the day. So if I was to summarize, it's, very be mindful of your planning, plan ahead, whether that's, take a look at your syllabus and look at those key dates, utilize Google Calendar as to keep yourself organized, prioritize, and, it's going to be different for everybody, but it sounds these are some strategies that really worked for you both. Okay. And so the next theme is around building community and fitting in with Ivy. So through my conversations with some students, alumni, they often reflect on Ivy being so memorable because of the moments that they've shared with others. And so there is a sense of importance around making your own community, making your friends. And so I'd like to hear a little bit about how did you go about building your community at Ivy? What was your recipe or your strategy there?
Yeah, I think looking back at the year, of course, there's so many exciting things that happened, but the core thing that I think of when I think of why it was such a great year was 100% the people in a
Hmm.
community. It's just honestly irreplaceable from the first 2 years. Like you just can't be being in a classroom with 70 to 80 people every single day. Whereas, the
Mhm.
lecture halls you're typically used to have hundreds. So
Yeah.
you just get that community aspect that you've never experienced since high school or middle school or whatever that was. But um, I think it's definitely intimidating at first, just because, of course, everyone wants to represent themselves well. And you hear everyone say, Abby's so amazing, you make all these great friends. So then, while that is great to hear on one part, another part of you is kind of expecting that. So
Mm.
when you don't get that right away, you can kind of, get in a bad spot thinking about it. But I think just realizing that connections and friendships take time. It's not,
Yeah.
an instant thing. But I think just a tip to build community is go to the events, all the
Mhm.
events you can, especially early on, because you just don't want to miss the events early on and then feel like you're trying to catch up in terms of meeting people. So I think just really utilize everything a week throws at you in terms of the connection aspect.
And I had a follow up on that, Sophie. So you mentioned go to the events. Now, are these events specific to Ivy or are they a combination of external events as well? If you can clarify.
Yeah, I think there definitely is a combination. I think the first little bit, it's all, organized by your owls
Yeah.
and your section president, but then you'll find that, there's more informal events, whether that's, with different people in the section or just very unscheduled events and just putting yourself out there and asking people to hang out.
Awesome. Adi, what
Yeah.
about you?
Yeah, honestly, I'm pretty it's pretty much like echoing Sophie. I think just really get involved, I think building your community early on is like really important. Honestly, like every day just come with like a smile on your face, like excited, because like this is really special. Like you're not going to be able
Mhm.
to, have another HBA1 experience. You're not going to be in the same classroom with these amazing like people again in HBA2. So I think
Mhm.
it's really just like take advantage of every single day. Talk to someone new, like learn about like their story. Like, I think that was something that I was really like appreciative of was like I actually like got to talk to every single person in my section and kind of like understand, a little bit more about them like on a personal level and not just like hi, hello, which was like really nice. And
Yeah.
honestly, like talk to other people outside of your section too. Like this is one big like community, one big family. So honestly, like, just say hi in the hallways. I think O week's honestly like a great time to just like put yourself out there because
Mhm.
everyone's so new and you can like make a lot of friends like during that whole week. So if you can, I would really really like recommend just go to every event during a week, and then of course like during your time at Ivy, like especially in the I would say like first 4 months, there's gonna be a lot of events like scheduled by like your VP of your like section. So
Mhm.
like go to all those events, it's a good time. You'll really bond with your section, and then like there's obviously like a few planned trips during the year. Of course, go to those. I think it really like makes the year. But yeah, just like get involved, have a like positive mindset, and I think you'll, be just fine.
Yeah. Now I'm curious to hear. So you even mentioned, yeah, get involved, right? There's going to be a lot of external, internal events that happen at Ivy and outside of Ivy. Really get to know your section mates, but also outside, right? It's one big community and possibilities of you to really meet and know and get to know various peoples of diverse backgrounds and experiences that I think could definitely make your IB experience more fruitful or whatever. But I'm curious to see now, part of these events that you attend, were they also, club related? Did you find that that was something that was also a great way to build that community?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the clubs at Ivy are honestly like really special too because a lot of the same people that are in different sections that are not in your sections that you might not be able to talk to sometimes are going
Hmm.
to be a part of those clubs. So I would definitely recommend like during clubs week, there's going to be obviously a week where there's going to be booths that you can like visit in the grand hall or like the main hall, and I definitely like say like go to that. Try to like find, maybe two or three clubs that you're like, excited about and think you can actually join. And I would say honestly, just do it. But I was a part of like Ivy Social Impact Club this year, and it was really special because I like planned their whole conference, and like I met
Okay.
like two of like probably my best friends now. Actually, like someone in like Sophie's section. So like it was it was
Oh.
it was really fun. It was really fun. Yeah, I did it with Laura and like shout out Laura. Like we had a
Oh,
great
that's the best.
yeah, she's the best. Yeah. But like we had a great conference and yeah, it was honestly a great time. I think the club's aspect is actually really underrated at Ivy. It's a really good time and just get involved in that too. I know it does
Mhm.
get hard, with like balance and stuff, but I think one to two clubs is definitely like manageable, like if
Yeah.
you like plan it right. But yeah, great point, Vanessa, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. And I guess on the contrary, so these are all great tips in terms of, building your community, getting involved and meeting people. And on the opposite side, we talk to a lot of students and there's this feeling of imposter syndrome that oftentimes comes up in different moments during your IB journey. I would say more in the beginning because everything is new and you're not quite sure. And so those feelings might come up. And so I'd like to hear if you ever had that, felt imposter syndrome and how did you navigate that?
Yeah, I think that is a very significant thing that a lot of people experience, whether you call it imposter syndrome or you just don't know how to label it.
Yeah.
Um, I think I felt it a lot in the first week for sure, but then I found it sort of
Mm.
came in waves, whether that was exam season, you're not used to how other people study, and then a big wave, in recruiting season, just
Mm.
because I personally have been working at a summer camp the past 3 years.
Mhm.
So I'd never been recruiting. I didn't even know the first thing to it. So I think that was a big pinpoint in terms of, comparison and not feeling as equal to those around you.
Mhm.
And I think the best way to kind of overcome that, it's just all about, how you speak to yourself and just reminding yourself you're here for a reason. No one got in by fluke. Everyone deserves their spot. And everyone just approaches things differently. What one person may find is successful for them might not be for you. So I think just don't hold anyone's habits or ways of learning to a standard of how you need to be.
Yeah, that's a
Thanks.
great point. That's a great point, Sophie. Honestly, like echoing a lot of what you said. But like you mentioned before, everyone's nervous. Like everyone has imposter syndrome. So it's like everyone around you is like feeling the same thing. So like you shouldn't like, make that like bear you down. So like
Mm.
don't worry about that. And honestly, it was like a big wave in the beginning just because like it was so new. Of
Mhm.
course, it did hit me with recruiting as well because like this is my first time really like recruiting for, a finance job. Um, but honestly, the best way to really overcome it, like you mentioned, is just like, positive self-talk. Like everyone's
Yeah.
here for a reason, there's a lot of people that would want to be in your position. So like be grateful for where you are, of course. And, just keep going. Honestly, like, you can do it. And like I think the story that you're gonna tell is gonna be even, more beautiful. Like it's gonna be good. Everything's gonna work out. So like don't worry. And of course, I think the best thing to do is, of course, like reach out to HBA2s. I think that's been something that's really like important for me is because like they've been through like what you've done. So if there's anyone in like maybe it was your owl, or maybe it was maybe someone you found on LinkedIn, or maybe it's someone you saw in the hallway, just strike up a conversation and ask them like how do they like navigate recruiting, how they navigate academics. I think that's honestly like a great way to just like overcome that imposter syndrome, just because everyone felt it, so like don't worry about it. And I think it's a great like way to just like learn more about someone's journey, and it can definitely help you as well for sure.
Yeah, good point.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say, staying true to yourself. Absolutely, right? It's inevitable where we sometimes compare ourselves, right? Especially if we're feeling this sort of way and these emotions. But, everyone's journey is so different. And I think that's why it's so unique to hear from different perspectives. And to your point, Addie, is reach out to upper year students. So those HBA2 students, career peers, your owls who likely come with experiences similar to what they might be feeling, HBA ones. And so, it's having them reflect on the realities, but also how were they able to navigate that to almost validate what you're going through. Thanks for bringing that forward.
100%. Yeah.
All right. And so kind of transitioning a little bit, there's a lot of conversation amongst students and amongst career management around self-care. How do we take care of ourselves when times get a little bit busy? And so I'd like to hear a little bit about what does self-care look like during busy seasons and busy periods like recruitment exams, and how do you take care of yourself?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a really important aspect. It definitely comes in waves how busy
Yeah.
you are. So I think it's important, having those outlets when times do get busy.
Mhm.
Um, for me personally, I play on the Western squash team. So I'm lucky enough to, have set practices every week to just know I get to go let it all out on the court as well as just chat with my teammates as well. So I think for me, that was a huge, huge outlet. And as well as, working out at the gym after or before class.
Mhm.
Um, as well as I think a big point is intramurals as well. That's a way if you like sports to get outside,
Yeah.
um, play a sport. You don't have to think about school or recruiting or anything like that. So that was a great, great ways for me, as well as during exam season, my friends and I, we would study together and then have a dinner planned that we could go to as a study break. So it was kind of the thing motivating us to study, and then also provides a nice break. So I think just having those outlets and leaning on people as well as knowing what works best for you.
Awesome.
That's a great point. Yeah, I think self-care is really important. I think, of course is like different for every single person. Whether you want to read, whether you want to like work out, stuff like that. For me, like working
Mhm.
out really helped because I think it's just like important, to like get outside, get some fresh air, whether you,
Mhm.
you want to go on a run or whether you want to go to the rec. But yeah, I think just like after what I tried to do was like literally whether it was like right after class or after I finished all like my work, I would just like go hit a workout, and I think that really helped out. I think honestly, finding, like a good group of people to lean on, is really important too, because of course, like everyone's stressed, but like when you're kind of like in a big group, everyone can kind of like support each other as well. And I think just planning events like with your section as well, I think it really like, motivates you to work harder, and of course, like, play hard, work hard. So I think just like implementing that is like a great way for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was kind of funny. After class, most days you found that the rec was kind of just like an Ivy hangout because
Yeah.
everyone would just go after class. So that's half working out, half chatting. Good balance.
But that's great because, like you said, it's an outlet to just, release or de-stress or just catch up with some friends. And that in itself is a distraction to, take a break, right? So this has been a great conversation, very insightful to kind of hear a little bit about your different strategies and your journey. And needless to say, it sounds like they've been quite different, but there's some similarities in some of the ways that you approach some of the challenges that you encountered, but also some of your recipes for success. And so, as a kind of final takeaway, if you could give a piece of advice to the incoming HBA ones that will be starting in September, what would that advice be?
Yeah, that's a good point. I wish there was a podcast I could listen to before hearing this.
Yeah.
Um, I think kind of the biggest thing for me was just try your best not to compare yourself to others. Um, because, there's always room for improvement. So I think just giving yourself the grace and the gratitude that you deserve. Of course, it's nice to, want to achieve big things, but I think changing your perspective and looking at it as a motivating perspective rather than getting down on yourself, as well as just recognizing everyone's nervous, everyone's in the same boat, everyone feels how you feel, and just living in the moment, I think, is the biggest thing, and really enjoying it, because when I look back, it honestly flew by so fast. It feels like it was a month. So just really enjoying every moment and just meeting great people along the way.
Sophie.
Yeah, like I definitely agree with Sophie. HBA1 went by so fast. That's one thing I would definitely recommend to everyone coming in. Literally enjoy every single day, because I promise you're gonna regret it. Like, after, because like I know HBA1 is probably one of the most special years, and I definitely was like my favorite year of like my undergraduate career.
Me too.
Mhm.
But yeah, like I think honestly, just coming in, I still think like the social aspect of like Ivy is definitely like the most important one, at least for me. I think, literally just talking to everyone, meeting with everyone, get involved in your section. Like there are, elected positions. So, if you are, trying to, get more involved, I definitely recommend it. But yeah, honestly, just talk to every single person in your section, reach out to, HBA2s, reach out to HBA1s, and, join clubs at Ivy. I think that would be like another great point. But just like, be happy, be grateful for where you are. Don't compare yourself for sure. Everyone's on their different journey. But just honestly try your best every single day, and that's all that matters.
Awesome. Well, Adi, Sophie, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. Very much appreciate it. And that's it for today.
Thank you for watching. If you'd like to see more podcast content, check out your career management community on Learn. If you'd like to connect with career management, you can book a one-on-one appointment via 1220 or visit us in room 2235. Take good care.